One summer, I did an internship with McKinsey, and those were the 10 worst weeks of my professional life.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Bettina, a very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
You are the co-founder and CEO at Julie, an app for managing chronic health conditions. And you're also well known as an investor at the Swiss Shark Tank version, Höhle der Löwen, Switzerland. So before we talk about your impressive entrepreneurial journey, we want to dive right into the story of how you got there. The first question is, how soon did you actually know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
That's a little difficult. I always knew I wanted to do something in business or I wanted to study law. But, I only had role models that in my family that did entrepreneurial things. My 4 grandparents were all entrepreneurs. My grandmothers had their own businesses. My grandfathers had their own businesses. And my parents also never worked for anybody else. They were, my mom had 2 pharmacies. My dad is a doctor and has his own practice. So nobody in my family really had a 9-to-5 job. And I guess that was, made it much easier for me to envision becoming an entrepreneur.
Was it ever an option for you to take over the family businesses that you had in there?
No, I didn't. I really didn't want to, study law or become a pharmacist. That wasn't something that I really wanted to do. I did really want to become a coal miner because my grandfather was a coal miner. But then he said, look, honey, they don't let girls or women into the mines. So I thought, well, maybe I can do something like be an entrepreneur like my grandfather, who I really admired. He had given his business, his coal wholesale business, to his son. So for me, I thought that what he did and what he accomplished sounded fun. He taught me, how to negotiate. He told me all about how he conducted his business. And when I founded my first startup, he had given me some money to save. And I asked him, Grandpa, can I use that money and put it into my company? And he said, yes, I should do that. And so I was off to the races with my first company.
So inspired by the entrepreneurial backgrounds of your family, you still had to find your own entrepreneurial playfield or playground, basically. How do you then identify what you wanted to do within the field of entrepreneurship?
Well, first, I actually didn't think that I could become an entrepreneur right off the bat.
Okay.
I thought that I would have to go up through the ranks and get some experience and work for a real company. And I studied at the University of St. Gallen, and all of the other students, my friends, they wanted to go to work for consultancies like McKinsey or BCG, or they wanted to go to Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan, things like that. And I actually tried it one summer. I did an internship with McKinsey, and those were the 10 worst weeks of my professional life.
Why so?
It was just the atmosphere there. It was like everybody was grading everybody constantly, and I felt like it was a Stasi thing because everybody, it's sort of this up or out mentality. And so it's everybody against everybody. And that was something that I found just abhorrent. Also, I didn't feel very comfortable telling people that were 30 years my senior what they should do. I felt that was just, I don't know, I found it I hadn't been raised to do that, right? You're raised to be respectful of your elders, but you go in there as an as an intern, and you're supposed to create a concept for a big company where you honestly have no idea. And they bill you as this wonderful, talented person that studied with Professor so-and-so. Anyway, that showed me that that was not the right path for me. It really shook me awake, because up to that point, I'd done internships that were cool. I interned in the U.S. Congress and the German Bundestag. I sold oil. I sold stationery to the Middle East. I was in a bookkeeping one. I was in the strategy unit of a big company. But also during those internships, I always found myself fantasizing about liberating the people there, because, I was a lowly intern and they could confide in me because they knew I was leaving, pretty soon. So they would tell me about their work, and they would always tell me, if I could make the decisions, I would do this. If I, had the leeway to create this, then this would happen. And so I always really thought I can liberate these people from their corporate chains, and then things would be a lot better. So, that was kind of the thing. And I came to entrepreneurship because at the University of St. Gallen, I was president of the student government. And while I was that, I co-founded an initiative called START, which is these days the largest student-run entrepreneurship conference worldwide, I think, actually. Yeah. It's been around now for 25 years. And so my friends who co-founded that with me, they actually went on to found a company called Brains 2 Ventures, which was kind of a founder dating platform back in 2000. And so they matched me up with 2 engineers from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich. And I got to know them, and we really liked each other. And they had this technology that they'd worked on for a decade and more, text-to-speech software. And they offered me to be a co-founder and gave me a sizable chunk of the company, and I haven't looked back.
Wow, that's an amazing story. I still wonder, you said you never thought that eventually you could become an entrepreneur. So you also did this small detour there to McKinsey. What then, sort of motivated you to take the leap and really say, hey, I want to now do it. This is the perfect timing, the perfect opportunity for me. Were there any doubts in, when you made that decision?
Yes, of course. I did not think that I would be successful. And I was really hesitant, but at the time I had a boyfriend who also had founded a company, and he was like, "Are you kidding? Of course you can do that. Why don't you be, more self-confident? You can do this." And so, he encouraged me, and I, said, okay, if this doesn't work, I can always get a job at McDonald's. So that was my backup plan, to work at McDonald's if I didn't, if I failed in this. And for a long time, it was really tough. I mean, we started off pretty well, but then the telecom industry collapsed in 2001. And also, there had been the dot-com bust. So things were really hard for a number of years, and we had to fire half of our staff, more than half of our staff. We had to go on short-time work. We had to essentially furlough our people. And it was several times we, almost didn't make it. But, I raised $8 million for that company, and we sold it for $125 million. So not a bad outcome.
That's really impressive. What kept you going in those tough moments? Why didn't you give up and say, hey, I tried it, it's too difficult or it didn't work out, let's close the shop? What kept you going in those tough moments?
I think the founding team, my co-founder, and it was the CEO, I was the COO, Volker Janssen, and we worked so closely together. And, when he wasn't feeling so well, I was there and the other way around. And I'm not a person to stop doing things. I'm really a person to just keep the faith. But yeah, for a while it was really, really tough. So and I went to work every single day, and I walked past the bakery, and I walked past the kiosk, and I walked past the painter, and I'm like, all of these people can make money. Like, they make money, and they sell what they have. Why am I too stupid to sell what we have? And then we had a breakthrough, actually. Our text-to-speech software, which today is everywhere, right? You can talk to Siri, you can talk to Alexa, you can talk to Google, you talk to your car, everything. And we thought at the time the killer application was to have an automatic way to speak to directory assistants. You may not even remember what this is, but if you needed a phone number back then, you would call up in Switzerland the 111, the 111, and there would be friendly, mostly women there, and you'd say, I need to speak to Hans-Uli Schmid in Urdorf, and they would tell you the number. And that was obviously really cost intensive. So there were things where you could automate it, and our idea was that they would pronounce the names and the numbers back to you. Obviously, completely these days, you'd think, oh my God. But so that fell apart when the telecom bust happened. And then we figured out our software is really small. It was only 2 megabyte was the kernel of it. And it was like, well, maybe we can use this as embedded software. We tried all other kinds of things like speaking cows with the Swiss Milk Association. We tried like these speaking avatar cows. We, did things for blind people, which is very original, like the original reason why text-to-speech software was created, to read aloud things for blind people. But then we came up with the idea to talk to companies, to automotive companies. And, we did these little projects for them, and they were like, this is really cool. We're going to put you into the Mercedes S-Class. And we were like, oh my God, this is like, that's amazing. Like, any new technology that goes into the S-Class at Mercedes, because they invented the airbag, they invented the ABS, other car companies are like, So we went to the others, we weren't supposed to, but we said, hey, the S-Class is going to have this in it, S-Class. So we started collecting all of these contracts, and then we figured out that we were charging, because our software was very easily portable. Our software was, we charged very little to port that to the platforms and the chipsets that the automotive platforms had. We charged about $40,000. And by chance, we figured out that our competition charged $400,000. So once we did that, we were profitable instantly. And then we got, $3, $4, $5 for every car that went off the assembly line. And that was like printing money, because we had covered all our costs with this porting. So anyway, so that was, Yeah, and we banked all these contracts, and that was sort of the reason then that our biggest competitor had to buy us up.
Amazing. And then that's how you actually also figured out how to make money, not only the local shops that you saw while walking around.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, finally. Unfortunately, my grandfather, who had given me the $30,000 to start the company, passed away before I could show him that we could do this. Just 2 more years or so, and he would have seen that we were profitable. But I'm sure he knows.
I'm sure he would have been super proud. So after this first success with Svox, you then actually also spent quite some time in the US. So first of all, why did you go to the US?
I went to the US because that boyfriend of mine that encouraged me to go to start entrepreneurship, I actually married him. His name is Andreas Göldi, and he is now a partner at a VC fund called B2V, which is short for Brains 2 Ventures. You see how things, go full circle.
Now.
Yes, it will go full circle, and it went full circle. So he had sold his company, Namix, which is a large tech consultancy. He sold that, and then was sort of had his earnout and started working for the acquiring company. He hated it. He hated it so badly that he said, look, I had promised you to go abroad because I didn't want to stay in Switzerland for my whole career. I didn't think that was, what I wanted originally. But, I fell in love with a Swiss boy, and I knew that Switzerland would continue to be in my life. I'm originally from Germany. I spent a good chunk of my childhood in the United States. So Andreas and I decided to go to MIT to get a master's degree there. So Andreas and I decided to get a mid-career master's at MIT. And out of MIT, I founded my second company, Pixability, which turned into a video advertising optimization platform, mostly for YouTube, also for other social media platforms and streaming TV like Hulu and Roku and others. I raised $28 million for that company. I was CEO for 10 years. And then we wanted to come back to Switzerland. Specifically, my husband wanted to come back to St. Gallen because obviously you can't have children. We had 2 children by that time that speak Swiss German with a Zurich accent. Right? So no. That was not acceptable in our household. So we moved back for family reasons to Switzerland. I handed over my CEO duties to a professional CEO that we hired, and I'm still on the board. The company is profitable, and hopefully we'll see a good exit from that soon.
Hopefully, yeah. You've already walked that walk in the past. So now I also wonder, how did the US actually change or shape you? Because you spent already some time there when you were younger, then you came back. The US seems to have quite a significant effect on you as a person. It also certainly changed you a bit. So what did the US do to you as an entrepreneur?
So I moved with my mom and my brother to the US when I was 6 years old. So I learned to read and write in English, spent all of my elementary school years there. And then we moved back to Germany. And I graduated from high school there and then went to Switzerland. My father's lived in the US now for 40 years. So there's obviously that family element there. And, for 40 years, I've had a Texan stepmom who is very, very dear to me. And I would go almost every school vacation. I would go to the US to see my dad and my stepmom. So that was my constant connection there. But we moved to Boston and we stayed there for 12 years. I actually have spent more time in the United States than I have in any other country. So there's definitely an American component to what I do. And, when I was in elementary school, I frequently heard from my stepdad, if you put your mind to it, you can do anything. That's really the American credo. They really say, you can do everything. You can aspire to be anything. And that's the whole mentality there. And people actually give you a chance to prove that. It's not the same starting point for everybody, obviously, right? There are people that have more inherent advantages if you go to the right school, if you have the right ethnicity, if you have the right gender. But in general, people really, it's not about the status that you start with. It's about how much you accomplish, right? And Americans love rags to riches stories. They're, not into who is, Prince so-and-so and Baron so-and-so, right? They're into who made $1 billion and how did they do it. And every American somehow comes with the mentality that they can do that too.
And that seems to be quite a contradiction to what you find here in Europe, especially in Switzerland to a certain degree. How do you perceive that?
In Switzerland, there are things that are a lot more pleasant because things are more low key. Mm-hmm. People, understatement and modesty is a value that the Swiss hold very dear. But I think it keeps people from having the ambition to accomplish bigger things, to think bigger. And that makes it harder, I think, for startups or for people to go and start new companies because their surroundings may not be as supportive as they would be in the United States.
Mm-hmm. And as an entrepreneur, what does that do to you? Because you still spend a lot of time in the US with your current company.
Yeah.
Is the US the better playground for you to be active in than Switzerland or Europe in general?
Well, I have to be honest. I've spent the majority of my career working in the United States. So that's where my professional network is, right? And where I have, a certain credibility. Mm-hmm. When I came back to Switzerland, I was like, wow, I've been gone for 12 years and nobody knows me here. So it was actually quite cool that I got chosen to be a shark on the Swiss version of Shark Tank because that gave me like instant notoriety. Right. But still, I've only founded venture capital funded companies. And I know that's the thing that I know, right? Mm-hmm. The mid-sized family-run companies is something that's, in Germany and in Switzerland, very traditional way to do that. But my companies have always come out of universities. Julie now, I founded together with a professor from University College London, and we're a chronic condition care platform. So we help people manage their chronic conditions with our Julie app, and we connect that with their insurance companies or with their doctors or employers who in the United States pay most of the healthcare costs. Mm-hmm. At least for people under 65. And, the US has a almost $4 trillion healthcare market. There are inefficiencies there like you couldn't believe. And that made it obviously very attractive. In Europe, you have to go country by country. Every country has its different healthcare systems. Mm-hmm. Actually, the Swiss healthcare system is closest to the US one, interestingly enough. Apart from that, here the employers don't pay anything. Right. So in the United States, actually, you get more support from your employers than you get here. But another big thing was that electronic health records are not readily openly available here. What we can do in the United States is we can ask each patient for their permission to, can we connect to your electronic health record data, and then we can match that with your smartphone data, your wearables data, with environmental data like weather or air pollution, sunlight hours, and then you as the patient tell us every day how you're feeling, and we can ingest all of that data, apply our machine learning models to that, and give you recommendations on what to do. So there were a couple of reasons why we decided to do that in the United States, and they kind of all fit together. So yes, Julie, again, is a US company, and I spend about 30% of my time in the United States.
Today's episode is brought to you by Relay. Relay is a Bitcoin-only investment app from Switzerland, available on Android and iOS, that gives everyone an easy and secure way to invest in Bitcoin with minimal barriers to entry. No deposit, KYC verification, or registration is required. After you download the app, just choose the amount of euros or Swiss francs you want to invest and make the payment using a bank transfer. That's it. You can start with as little as 10 euros or Swiss franc and pay 0% transaction fees until the end of 2021. Alternatively, you can automate this process by starting a weekly or monthly savings plan and buy Bitcoin at regular intervals. To learn more, head over to relay.ch/ambassadors/Swisspreneur and buy Bitcoin with Relay, Europe's easiest Bitcoin investment app. Then wouldn't it be better, or at least less stressful, for you to move back to the US?
Well, our children have 6 cousins here. My mother is in a nursing home close to Basel and the German side. And my brother and his wife and 3 kids are here. My sister-in-law, brother-in-law, and their 3 kids are here in St. Gallen. And we actually really like the freedom that our children have here. In the United States, people keep their children prisoner. Essentially, you cannot let your children out of your eyesight, or at least some caregivers' eyesight, pretty much till they're 18, which I find crazy and not good for children. And so when we came back to St. Gallen, we actually had to teach our children that they can go to the neighborhood playground by themselves, that they can go and, walk to the grocery store and buy something there. And we had to tell them, you're Swiss kids now. And they were like, who's going to watch us? Who's going to watch us? Swiss kids are allowed to do those things by themselves. And that's a big reason for us to stay here. And, I don't mind. We still have a house in Boston, directly on the beach. And I love being there when I can do that. And we go, obviously, to see the kids' grandparents, my dad and my stepmom over there. And it's, it's for me, it's the right balance of life.
So you basically combine the ideal, the best of both, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you also, as a dual career couple, it has to work. Yeah. My husband really wanted to go home. He always had a little bit of a disconnect with being in the US. And so he's happy here now. And, what they say, happy husband, happy life.
And that's actually a perfect segue to the next section that I want to talk to you about. We often talk about the co-founder relationships being like marriage, but we rarely talk about your real romantic partner, your real marriage, and what kind of impact that can have on your personal career and business success. So what impact does Andreas have on your business career, and what impact do you have on his?
Well, I think we have a partnership in equality, as you say that. And that's what I chose him for. You know, it was a conscious decision. He was already an entrepreneur. He already had that drive and ambition to do his own thing. And since I aspired to that, I was like, he's a cool guy. And then he's also, you know, a very, very generous and supportive person. You know, I, as I said before, I wouldn't have had the guts to become an entrepreneur right out of university. I wouldn't have done that. So people often ask me what the one most important decision in my life was, and it is to choose my husband, to be with him. He was my CTO at Pixability for 8 years. It takes a special kind of person to report to their wife, right? That's not something that someone can do that doesn't have enough self-confidence. Yeah. So Andreas is a quietly self-confident person, and he had been CEO before, so he was like, okay, I don't really want that job. I'm happy if my wife is the front woman, the face to the outside, and you know, I'll do these other things. And you know, we also decided to band together 2 years into me founding my second company. His startup didn't work out. It didn't survive the financial crisis. And so I said, okay, why don't we put all our eggs in one basket? Because I was pregnant at the time with our first child. And Andreas did, together with our nanny, did a lot of the childcare, more than I could do, because I had to travel. I had to, you know, make sure that the company was represented to customers, and we had 5 different locations that I had to travel to, and I couldn't have done that without a husband that really supported that job that I had to fulfill.
If you had to reflect on the question, what actually makes a good romantic or life partner, what would you say?
Well, I think it has to do with certain things that you have in common, where you have a common understanding of what you want to achieve in life, a certain fitting, I think also personal background. You know, when I was at university, there were people from all different kinds of backgrounds, and, you know, some from the European nobility and, you know, very, you know, sons and daughters of very large companies, sort of the, large mid-sized companies. And that wasn't something that really fit, you know, that lifestyle. So Andreas came from a middle class family here from St. Gallen, and it just fit personally because we were interested in art, in reading, and intellectual pursuits. We went to the movies, and we loved to travel. And so, you know, there are those things. And then on a professional level, we obviously spoke the same language. We both studied business administration. He had more of a focus on the technical side of things, the computer science side of things. And I had more of the focus on the finance and accounting side of things. But we had the same language. So whenever we have to solve relationship problems, we actually whiteboard them out.
That sounds like a very good fit in that regard. What would you actually say for your career to really also get this little push to jump into entrepreneurship? Your partner was essential to a certain degree. And would you recommend to look for a life partner before you actually start your entrepreneurial career, or then postpone it until you have reached the exit level? Or do you think it's possible to do both at the same time?
I recommend not to put any part of your life on hold while you're being an entrepreneur. no company and no co-founder and no investor will hold your hand when you're 85 years old, right? That will be your children, your partner, your siblings. They'll be there for you. Maybe some really close friends, but it's not worth giving those relationships up or neglecting them for any professional pursuit. You have to put that first. And, coming back to Switzerland I put my family first. It was hard for me to give up my friends, because I had a lot of entrepreneurial friends, giving up the company, being the CEO of the company that I was with the team that I had built. That was not an easy thing for me, but it was an easy decision in terms of this is the right thing for my family. This is the right thing for my husband. And so I did that gladly, and I'm happier for it. We're happier for it. And, I love being in Switzerland too. It's a wonderful place to be, and also to help others become entrepreneurs, right? I can make a dent in the Swiss entrepreneurial ecosystem, and I really happily do that. My role on the Swiss version of Shark Tank is to provide education to the general population. I believe that if we show people that, Susan Herzog and Hans-Uli Schmid can do that, right? If they bring their dreams on TV and they get money for what they do, then others will say, well, I've always had this idea. I've had this dream. Maybe I should start. And then I could also be there, and I'll find people that will help finance my dream. And that really meshes with where I started out, right? With founding Start at the University of St. Gallen. And I've had for over 15 years now an entrepreneurial office hour, which I'm just going to have a plug here for. I always offer that up to any entrepreneur that wants to talk to me. I have every week. On Mondays, I have 2 slots available where I talk to entrepreneurs, and they can sign up. All they have to do is go to calendly.com/Bettina Hein and sign up. It may take a few months to get a slot because it's, I talk to a lot of people. And for me, all of this gives me a lot of meaning in my life, not just being successful with my own ventures, but paying it forward to others. Because my goal is together with Andreas, to create 5,000 jobs in our careers, because that would be the amount of jobs it would take to feed the whole little city that I grew up in Germany, Bad Nauheim. If I could provide that many jobs, I could feed the whole town. And that's inspiring, that motivates me every morning. It's not, the pot of gold at the end of creating a company. It's more, what can I do for the people in my community, for my employees, and, for the general public as well.
You're definitely an inspirational and motivating role model to follow.
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying that.
You also mentioned the common vision that you have to create 5,000 jobs. I also wonder, do you have any other rituals or, sort of things that you get into on a regular basis to also really take care of your personal relationship and invest enough time besides your both individual careers that you follow these days?
Yeah, I mean, we have a regular date night, or in the pandemic, we actually started doing a date lunch because that's easier with, getting babysitters. We weren't really comfortable with that. And once a year, we'll do a parents only vacation. So we'll, have the kids, give them to the grandparents, and we just take off and do something. And there are things, and sometimes we actually attend conferences together,
Nice.
where we, both have a speaking role or something, mostly in the entrepreneurial context. So that's kind of fun to do professional things together as well.
So it sounds like a very natural and well-fitted mix that you have put together.
Yeah, I think so. I'm very, very grateful and fortunate for that.
You've also done both. You supported each other while you're both pursuing your individual careers, but you also mentioned before you also work together in the same company. Which option do you prefer?
I like both. Obviously, it's kind of tough to have just every single day this business that you're both trying your hardest to make successful, and then to separate that from your personal life. But we were able to do that. And, we decided, okay, we did that for 8 years. I want to stay on the entrepreneurial side. Andreas wanted to become an investor, and that works for us as well. I mean, we just really like to troubleshoot together, and I listen to what he's doing, and what kind of companies he's investing in, what he's experiencing there as a board member, because I'm also obviously an investor in companies now, and I'm on boards as well. So we have that, but he also understands my operator perspective of building a team, getting investors for my own company, and how you have to do sales, right? You have to do business development. You have to do all of those things. And he has very intimate understanding of that. And so we just can actually communicate around that. And actually, I find it interesting that some couples keep that completely separate, and they don't know what, they never talk about what one person does at work or what the other does. I've heard that plenty of times, and it astounds me that works, because for me, I think it's so important that we have this communication about what's going on in different parts of our lives, because we have to empathize with where each person is, right? I'm currently right now in a funding round, and that's very intense, because you have to talk to lots of investors, and you have to really pitch, and have all of due diligence things available, etc. And that requires me to have quite the focus, and that means Andreas has to take over some of the things that I would usually do, let's say on the family side or the kids side, and sometimes both of our busy periods coincide, and that's where we have to have a lot of understanding for each other, because when stress levels both are high, you can clash much more easily. And we've learned over the years to communicate about that and say, look, I'm really stressed right now. I'm sorry that I snapped at you. It's just, I'm really doing this. And that helps a lot, I think, in any partnership, not just between two people that work in entrepreneurship.
No, that's a wonderful story to share. Thank you for being so open about that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Now, you've also had already, quite some nice successes. You also earned some good money. You've done an exit. You've basically also handed over your company to another CEO. What's next for you? What do you still have on your bucket list? Do you want to do an IPO soon, or what's the goal?
Oh, soon. You're funny. Every company that you start, you have to be in it for you have to understand that it's a decade-long endeavor.
Yeah.
And I started Julie a year and a half ago. So there's still a long way to go.
Plenty of time left, yeah.
Yeah. And so yes, I would like to take a company public at a certain point, but I feel less romantic about it than I did in my 20s, where I was like, oh my God, that would be awesome. Because so many of my friends have done things like that, and it's not all that it's made out to be, right? Because you have totally different governance. You have to make quarterly numbers. You have to have all of this crazy reporting, Sarbanes-Oxley regulations. So you have to really be up for that, and understand that it's a different role than being in a private company. But yeah, I mean, I love learning and I love creating more jobs. So if I can do that, if the degrees of freedom that I have, that's really very important for me. I don't do well if people restrict my ability to make decisions. I very happily carry a lot of responsibility for jobs and for the families that my employees support on my shoulders. But if you take away my ability to make the strategic decisions or, mold a team as I think is most effective, then I can't be happy, right? So I think at this point I'm really unemployable. So this is the option that is that is open to me, and I love doing it. I did think long and hard about whether I would be happy just as a board member or as an investor. And, I took a year and a half to figure that out. And I just don't like being in the first derivative of something. I really like to work in a team. I don't think that I'm very good at not working in a team. This lone wolf mentality is the opposite of what I like to do and what is good for me, also psychologically. So it was hard to just, be by yourself so much. And so I really, now Julie has 14 people and I'm really in my comfort zone again. And it makes me happy to have this team, even though we're all remote and I work from home and we only see each other occasionally in the company. It's still wonderful to have that community of people that you work with. And we spend plenty of time at Julie to try to do this team bonding across actually countries and time zones, because there are 13 time zones between
13.
Yes.
Wow.
From Krasnoyarsk in Russia to San Antonio, Texas. We really have a lot in there. So you have to find time for team bonding. You have to check in more with people and be more deliberate about the company culture that you build. But I'm extremely passionate about doing that and building a company that is stable, building an organization. I started doing that when I was 16 years old, and building organizations and their culture is just something I really enjoy, and I think I'm really good at as well.
That's the perfect sweet spot to be in. It's also impressive how self-reflected and self-aware you are, because I think that's the crucial part, right? There's not one solution that fits all. You have to understand, what am I good at? What do I enjoy? Like you said before, the lone wolf setup is not good for you. So you choose something different. I think that's key to find your sweet spot, that you can also be happy, but also successful at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you don't have passion for what you do, you have to get up at least most mornings, maybe not every morning, but most mornings really excited to go to your job, to work with the people that you work with. And I have an awesome privilege in life. My the biggest privilege in my book is that you get to choose the people that you work with. And I get to do that. I get to choose every single person that I work with, and I get to also imbue the whole organization with the culture that it needs to integrate that person and the other people into a cohesive team. And that just makes it so much more pleasant than fitting into an organization where you don't have that much leeway to shape things.
I think that's a wonderful way to end today's episode. Before we wrap up, we have one last section for you, some rapid fire questions.
Oh gosh.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
So I either give you a short question or a selection of different options, and you have to explain your choice or your answer in one sentence.
All right, I will.
Let's start. What was your summer job as a teenager?
I mostly did internships at different companies, as I mentioned earlier, those things. But my very first job was actually fundraising for a charity.
Nice.
Yes, for the German War Graves Association. And what I learned there is that you get the most money from the poorest houses.
Wow, that's impressive. Mm-hmm. Founder or investor?
Founder.
That's a clear choice. Regret making an investment or not making it?
Not making it.
Is that easier to handle?
I mean, I don't feel, thus far, I've had really good investments. Mm-hmm. Not all of them are working as well as maybe they could. Sure. But, I haven't lost an investment yet. So, that will happen, obviously. But yeah, no, I love working with the entrepreneurs that I work with.
Bootstrapping a company or fundraising?
Fundraising. I feel that I'm honestly not capable enough to bootstrap a company. And, my companies are obviously very technology heavy, and we bring in lots of data and apply AI. And that just takes a while to build software that works and then scale it.
How many hours of sleep did you get last night?
I would have to look that up on Julie. Do you want me to look it up?
No, just a rough guess. We don't need the specific number, but what do you think was?
All right. I would say about 7.5.
Cool. That's a good amount.
Yes. And it's very important. I actually get really mad at people that come to work tired.
Yeah.
I don't pay you to come to work tired. I don't pay you to come to work drunk. I don't pay you to come to work stoned. And if you don't take care of yourself, you can't actually perform. Being a startup CEO is a high performance sport, and you have to make sure you take care of yourself.
That's a very clear statement.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Yep. I'm very strict about it.
And the last question for you, the last choice, United States or Switzerland?
That's so mean. I'm not going to answer that.
The neutral joker.
Yes.
That's all right. We accept that. I think it's a unique situation that you're in, so it's a pretty unfair question to ask.
Well, I do have to say that I just got my Swiss citizenship.
Congrats, nice.
And I don't have U.S. citizenship, so maybe that
gives us a hint.
That also gives you a hint. But my new company's in the United States, so you understand why I have to be neutral on that question.
Bettina, thank you so much for taking the time. It was a pleasure talking to you, and all the best, lots of success. And we're very excited to see what you're building and achieving in the future.
Thank you so much for having me.
This episode was brought to you by Swisspreneurs' main partner, Clara Business, the digital all-in-one solution for small businesses. Managing internal processes manually and on paper wastes an incredible amount of time. That's why Clara digitizes everything, allowing you to focus on what really matters, your core business. Go to clara.ch to find out how your business administration can be simpler, faster, and more efficient. Again, that's clara.ch.